Snow Treasure by Marie McSwiggan, Chapter 6. The next night saw Norway blacked out from one end to the other. Over 1,000 miles and not a light. Windows were draped in black, and people were cautioned not to allow so much as a candle ray to show outside their windows. That was the night of April 8th. Throughout the country was the feeling of impending evil. It was as if some unknown terror would come out of the deep shadows. Children who were old enough to know, cried themselves to sleep. But it was not just the children who were afraid. The grown-ups, too, saw fright in the black of the night. The air raid shelters were hastily finished. Big blocks of ice served the purpose that sandbags had in other countries. In the houses were strange preparations. For what, no one could tell clearly. Hunting rifles were brought out and cleaned, though this was often unnecessary in that land of great hunters. Ancient pistols came out of hiding places, and clumsy fowling pieces were lifted down from pegs above doors. Peter would have liked to go out to see what Ryswick looked like without a light anywhere, but that was impossible. Even though there was not yet a war, his father was leaving that night to join the regiment to which his class in military college belonged. Peter could not go out on his father's last night home. "You're the man of the house, Peter," his father told him. "You must look after your mother and the little ones." Peter had expected to do this without being told. "What about the gold?" he asked his father. "Uncle Victor will tell you what to do. You may not need to do anything at all. There may be no trouble after all." "But what if there is? If there's a war?" "You must wait for Uncle Victor. He'll tell you all you need to know. And though I know I don't have to warn you, not a word to anyone about what you're doing. If any stranger addresses you, you're to be deaf, dumb, and blind. But you're not to talk. When do you suppose we'll start?" "When Uncle Victor gives the word." Peter thought this was a most unsatisfactory answer, but he could see no good in asking further. If his father knew anything, clearly he wasn't going to tell. Some of the men of Ryswick had already left town. Nansen, the sailmaker, had gone, and Michael Berg's father, and many more. Mr. Anders, the schoolmaster, too. With him away, that day had been a holiday, as would be the morrow and every other day. But what was the good of a holiday like that? No one wanted to play. They tried all the games they knew, but no one seemed to enjoy any of them. Peter called a meeting of the defense club. The air raid drill wasn't very exciting, for although they could blow a warning whistle, they had no one to give them the all-clear signal when to come out. Helga and some of the girls thought it would be fun to play at being Red Cross nurses, but when they picked Bunny for the first air raid victim, he kicked and screamed, so they had to let him go, even though his legs were supposed to be shot away. But the long day dragged through somehow, and now it was night. But what a different night. Different from any Peter had ever lived through. He didn't know, but what he would rather have a toothache. After supper, his father seemed to be waiting for some message. It never came. He kept taking his watch out to see the time, although there were clocks everywhere you could look. His train did not go until midnight, and the sleigh to take him to the station would not come for hours yet. Peter peeped out of the window, careful that no light showed outside. There was nothing but darkness. There wasn't even a sound in this terrifying void. The world seemed to have come to an end at Peter's house. Life could not be possible in the blackness beyond. When the hour finally came for Mr. Lundstrom to leave, they all tried to be cheerful. Peter's mother even started to make a little joke. Old Père Garçon shuffled in for the bags, and then the door closed and blotted out Peter's father in the black of the outside. Mrs. Lundstrom turned to Peter in a flood of tears. He tried to comfort her, but there was little he could say. "You've me, Mother. I'll not let anything happen to you. Father said I was to look after you and Lovisa and Bunny, and I will." He smiled when she spoke. "I know, Peter. I'm being foolish. After all, I do have you." 4 hours after that, German parachute troops landed in Norway, and through all the ports clear into the Arctic Circle, soldiers and Marines poured out of merchant ships in the harbors. There were even gray-clad Nazi soldiers on the beach of Ryswick Fjord. It was Uncle Victor who brought the news in the morning. "On your sleds, children," he directed. "There's not a day to lose." And that's it for chapter 6.